It is that time again. Summer is officially over, at least for me. So that means that it's Halloween Horror Nights season. Hello out there. So I can't speak for everybody, but I know that summer is officially over for me, and that can only mean one thing, that it is time for me to unveil my Halloween Horror Nights anticipation list for 2024. I have to admit, this year kind of got away from me a little bit. It feels to me like I'm doing this a little bit later than I normally do. Maybe I'm not. It just seems like I haven't had a lot of time to actually sit down and think about the descriptions for each of these houses until like literally right here at the end of summer as we're entering the month that Horror Nights is going to open in. I'm filming this in August, in early August, and Horror Nights opens at the end of the month. So I feel like I've been remiss in my Horror Nights duties this year. But I have created my list ranked from my least anticipated to my most anticipated house this year. I really don't want to spend 45 minutes on this year. It always seems like these videos end up getting longer and longer than I mean them to. And it feels almost irrelevant at the end of the day because 9 times out of 10, I do not predict my favorite houses correctly. I've been kind of spot on sometimes, but then a lot of time I'll just be sitting here rambling about a house that I'm not excited for, and then guess what? It turns out to be one of my favorites. That has happened so many times in all of the years that I've been going to this event. I started going in 2009, so I've been at this for a while, and you think that I would learn by now to not like humiliate myself by making these grand statements about which houses I'm going to love, because she's wrong a lot of the time. But before we get into it today, a couple things I'd like to back up and introduce myself. Hello, my name is Carson. I love all things horror. I love horror books. I love horror shows, horror movies, and above all, I love Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios in Orlando. Like I said a few seconds ago, I started going to the event in 2009, have not missed a year since, barring the year that we didn't have Horror Nights because of COVID. I didn't get to go when they opened up a couple of the houses that year, so really that's the only time that I missed any of the event. But I'm a diehard fan. I love this. I love talking about this, perhaps too much, so I really do want to keep this short and sweet today. I don't want to embarrass myself on the internet again. Although it seems like that's kind of a lost cause at this point and it's too late, but I digress. None of my statements that I make here today should be taken in a derogatory way. I have mad respect for everybody involved in the creation of this event and all the actors in these houses, but taste is subjective. I say that every time I sit down to do one of these. This is not intended to be mean-spirited or hateful in any way. This is just my opinion. And again, I'm usually wrong. The ones that I'm the least excited for could end up being my favorite. We'll see how it shakes out this year. This year I'll be going to the event on 2 nights, one about midway through October, and then I'm going another night on closing weekend, which I have only been to closing weekend one time. My mom and I went, and there were no holds barred that evening. They were practically touching us. It was crazy. I think just the excitement of the event ending makes closing weekend kind of a interesting experience. So excited to do that again. I only went to the event one night last year. We had an incredible run through, so I'm glad I kind of have like a little more wiggle room this year, 2 nights to really get a better sense of the event. For this list, I'll be ranking from my least anticipated to my most anticipated. So let's jump right into it with number 10. And this seems to be kind of my MO here. You will notice a theme with my least anticipated houses. This year in the 10th place slot, my least anticipated, I have put A Quiet Place. I have not seen any of these movies. They don't seem like anything that I would necessarily really like. Maybe I'll watch them before the event, but this is kind of like not a priority for me to watch because I just don't think I'll enjoy them. I think my parents have seen them and said they were just okay, but it really didn't grab me as something that I'd be deeply entertained by. And I'm a little curious though about what this house is going to be like. Is it going to be quiet in there or what? I don't really know. I'm not feeling this one. This was an easy one to put in last place for me. It could surprise me, but I just really don't see anything about this necessarily connecting to me as someone that isn't even interested in watching the movies at all. And in number 9, we've got another one of the IPs this year, Insidious The Further. So yes, not to spoil what number 8 is going to be on my list, but I put all of the IPs this year at the bottom of my list. In fact, I was talking about this with a friend just the other day. Shout out to Nikki if you're watching this. But we were talking about how the IPs this year aren't really thrilling to us, and she's somebody that loves the IPs. Like, she's usually most excited for those, but this year she's not really feeling any of them. And I have to say that I kind of agree, and we're a little jealous that Hollywood gets another weekend house, because I would personally love that here. But we get what we get, and maybe these will surprise me. I digress. Number 9 is Insidious The Further. Like I said, have done an Insidious house before in 2015, and I did like the house. Well, I liked it, but I'll have to say that that is actually one of the most unsettling houses I've been in at Horror Nights. That one actually was kind of disturbing and creepy, and I know there were some rumors beforehand about alleged activity happening in this house. I don't know if that was just to drum up excitement or what, but I'm not a fan of this movie series. I've only seen the first one. And it was one of those times when they hyped it up as being like the scariest movie of all time, the scariest movie since insert whatever scary movie the marketing chose here. But I didn't hate it. It just wasn't about what I thought it was going to be about. I will say I loved the scene where you see the demon and like his little lair, and he's like sharpening his claws or whatever, and that Tiptoe Through the Tulips song is playing. I thought that was hilarious, and I loved that. But it didn't really make me curious to watch any more of these movies. They just really weren't my thing. So again, to the bottom of the list, this one goes. This should not come as a shock. I basically gave it away just a moment ago. I have put Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in the 8th slot. Now, I will say that I loved when they did the original Ghostbusters a few years ago. One of the best houses, one of the most fun houses ever. That sense of community and everyone singing along to the theme, that was great. But as of right now, I have not seen Frozen Empire. I don't have an opinion on the movie. I saw Afterlife. I actually really liked Ghostbusters Afterlife, but I haven't seen this one. This is probably, of like all the IPs, this is the one I imagine I'll get around to watching before I go to the event, because I do like Ghostbusters as a franchise. But I'm an originals gal through and through, and I was a lot more interested in what we had originals wise in this lineup than any of the IPs. You know, these could move up or down in the rankings. Like I said, I do like Ghostbusters, but this just doesn't feel like a big priority for me this year. All right, number 7, I have put Major Sweets Candy Factory. This one, I think a lot of people might be surprised that this is my least anticipated of the originals. I did the Scare Zone. I don't really have a good sense of much of anything about that Scare Zone. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in it, and my memory of that year that Scare Zone appeared is kind of skewed and a little fuzzy. I can't, I'm not going to go much further into it than that. This one is not something that I'm necessarily excited for, just because like I didn't have the best year, the year that this Scare Zone was at the event. So I'm kind of like, I don't really want to be reminded of that. And it's nothing personal. It's just, it doesn't thrill me. I'm kind of like, for this one. But at least it provides the opportunity for me to like see this storyline played out in a house. And I have to admit, even aside from like that year, the Scare Zones for me, I need to be better about spending more time in them. There's been years that there's been Scare Zones that I loved, but for me the priority is always the houses, and I feel like I'm just not good about spending a ton of time in the Scare Zones, and I really need to fix that. But this one is not the only time we've had a Scare Zone turn into a house. In fact, we had Saws in Steam, and that was like my favorite house of 2011. So we've seen this translation work before. So I'm not going in with a closed mind. It's just not one that I'm really thrilled about, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. Number 6, Monsters of Latin America. So this is taking me back to another house from that particular year with Major Sweets. The Chupacabra house will always remind me of when I found out that Phantom of the Opera was closing. So that was fun and horrible. But this one, I think there's a lot of potential here, because I love when we dive into other cultures and other legends and things like that. I think that's awesome. It's kind of taking me back a little bit to the La Llorona house from the past, and I like drawing from things that aren't movies or books or things, drawing from actual like word of mouth legends. That really excites me. I could see this one being maybe a little comical, but I feel like this one's going to be surprisingly scary. I will make a prediction about that one. I think this one is going to be scarier than I'm expecting it, and maybe some other people are expecting it to be. And I think there's a lot of potential here. I'm excited to see what monsters we get to meet. Now, right here in the middle is where I have put Triplets of Terror, my number 5 pick, because like, what even is this? I'm very curious about this one because I don't know these triplets. I've never heard this name before. It's their birthday, from what I understand. There's gonna be some murder. This sounds like it has the potential to be very campy and very gory. And are we uncovering new Horror Nights lore? Is this going to be a family? Are these going to be characters that we meet again at some point? I don't know. When this one was announced, I'm like, what is this? Not in a negative way, just in a like, oh, like this is an original, got it. This isn't like lifted from anything. We just made some people up. And I think that's exciting. I don't have any predictions as to what is going to be inside of this house. And I think that's why I kind of put it in the middle, because I don't feel like it's going to be awesome just based on the title. I don't feel like it's going to be horrible just based on the title. It's kind of a question mark, like a what kind of house? But I'm here for it. This one sounds like fun. This one kind of feels like it could have come from Slaughter Cinema, another house this year. This kind of seems like maybe one of those B movies from either of those houses. So I'm going into this one with an open mind because I don't even know what the heck this is, and that excites me. Number 4, the museum deadly exhibits. So we've got a colon here, and that always makes me feel like, is this going to be a new series? Because the idea of weird things in a museum, like, why have we not explored this before? There's so many different angles that you could go like approach this from, and different themes and different eras in history. And I'm kind of feeling the potential for a series at some point, maybe, I don't know. But this one immediately grabbed my attention when I saw that it was announced. And what a time this was, when all the, like, day after day, we kept getting like a new original each day. I remember being at work, like feeling so spoiled and excited, like what are they gonna announce today? Which original? Which I can't recall another year where the originals were just like bam, 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 one right after the other. Usually like they'd just get like placed on the website. Like back in the day when the website would drop, you just find out what the originals were. But I'm an originals girl, like I said, and this one I'm really excited for. I could see this one having some really cool set design, because there's like thousands and thousands of museums around the world, and a lot of them have very distinct styles and distinct looks, and I'm excited to feel like I'm walking through like an exhibit or something. I hope that this one's in a sound stage where they'll have the potential to create these like big grand sets. I'm excited to see this curse and to see how this manifests. I think that this is a genius idea, and it kind of makes me think like, why have we not done something like this before? Have we? I can't recall another like museum type exhibit, but perhaps I'm wrong in that. Correct me if I am. Number 3, this was the house I was waiting for them to announce, because, you know, I keep up with speculation and everything, and I think we all kind of knew that we were going to get another one of these, and I've come to love these so much. But another Universal Monsters house, Eternal Bloodline. This one is for the girls. I am automatically so here for this feud and for these characters, some of which we have seen before in some of these Universal Monster houses. I'm loving what they're doing with this franchise. I love the new take on the monsters. I've gushed about this before in the past, so I'm not going to gush too much about it now. But the monsters are the heart of the studio, and to see them get treated with so much reverence and love and joy year after year, and we're bringing them back, I couldn't be happier. And I know when Epic Universe opens and we get the new Universal Monsters area there, it's like they're gonna have their own permanent place. And I'm really excited to see the future of the monsters with the company just in general. I know Dark Universe didn't really work out as planned, but there's still potential there, and you can tell how much love the creatives have for the monsters. So every time we get one of these new houses, I'm just overjoyed and excited. So I really can't wait for this one. I'm pretty confident in saying I think this one's going to be a favorite. Usually the Universal Monsters ones are like either number 1 or number 2 for me. Number 2, Goblins feast. I have to say this is actually my husband's most anticipated. It's funny because each year he kind of like listens to me talk about the concepts and then just picks one to kind of latch onto. I cannot get him to create an anticipation list to save my life. That's fine. Not all of us are this way, but he'll pick like one that he's excited for. And when I told him about this one, he was really on board with this because it made us think of like Dungeons and Dragons. It feels like that. We're currently in a campaign right now. It was taking us back to conversations that we've had in taverns, although we haven't been eaten by any creatures or anything. I just think this sounds so funny, and I'm really excited to see the character design in this one and the set design as well, like going into like a warm, cozy tavern. It's just giving like high fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, like deep kind of camp for people that are into that genre. And like I said, of late we've been in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, so I'm kind of in that mode right now, so I'm super excited for this one. Will this be the comedy house? It sounds perhaps like it has some comedy potential, but again, sometimes some of the ones that I think are going to be silly end up being very scary, so maybe I'm wrong. And it also made me think of that scene from Troll 2, they're eating her, and then they're going to eat me. Oh my god! You know the one. So I just feel like this one, I'm going to have like the biggest smile on my face walking through. Very excited to see what this one's like. So of course that just leaves one house, my most anticipated, Slaughter Cinema 2. The way I loved the original Slaughter Cinema. I went through that house so many times. It was just beyond anything ever. It is still in my top houses of all time. And you know, when you get those random like audio pre-recorded lines from houses like stuck in your head, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. This is the house for me that I can still to this day hear that like corny announcer voice between rooms, and the I carve you and things like that, and pumpkin guts, and all of the audio cues from this one are just embedded in my brain to this day. And this house was a joy to go through, the original every single time, and the fact that they're bringing it back, I'm so thrilled. I cannot wait to go through this one. Now, unfortunately, I did see the pictures that were posted on Twitter of some of the scenes. I wish I hadn't, because I like to go in not really knowing. But from what I saw, I think we are in for just another treat like we were with the original Slaughter Cinema. So my popcorn is ready. I am so here for this. There you have it, my anticipation list. Let's all take a moment and laugh when this turns out to be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I feel like my top three are very, very solid here, and I think it might be hard for me to be disappointed by any of the top three, but I say that all the time, and then I look back on this and like, she didn't know anything. She had no idea what was gonna happen. So we'll see how accurate this is, and we'll all have a good laugh about it at the end of the day. So I'm curious to see what other people's anticipations lists are, what everyone is looking forward to, thoughts on the IPs, thoughts on it being a more originals heavy year. I've seen a lot of discourse already online, so I, for one, just can't wait to be there and finally experience these houses. That's going to do it for me here today. You can follow me on Instagram at HHN Carson. I post about books that I've been reading. I post random nerdy things, Halloween Horror Night stuff, just kind of a mixture of stuff, but that's where you can find me other than here. And in the meantime, I will be, as usual, not so patiently waiting for Halloween Horror Nights to begin.